And we are live.
Voila.
Voila, as they say. Welcome everyone to the show. So I am Selim. This is Channing on, can you wave Channing? Because now we have more than two people. And this is Brian, our guest. Thank you, Brian, for waking up so early again. Like, this show is making us wake up so early.
It's okay. It's a good way to start my day.
Yeah. So, Brian, talk a bit about who are you? Like, who are you?
Who am I?
Big question.
I'll focus on the professional side of it. I have been doing corporate law in the United States for almost 2 decades now, almost 20 years. I've been doing it for quite a while. Probably in the last, I'd say, 8 to 9 years, I've been focused on mainly tech and music and the convergence of the two. So I work a lot with emerging companies, startup companies, and also established companies in the tech space where they integrate music into their business model.
Yeah.
So I work not only on the tech side, but also the convergence of music into tech, which requires me to work a lot in the music industry with both artists, but also with labels and publishers when we're licensing copyrighted material and then putting it into the companies that are using their tech.
Yeah. So yeah, it's something that I learned from a friend that went to a music school, like producer school, something like that. And she told me for my naive opinion of music, for instance, was that, you're the artist, you release the song and the song is yours. And then she was like, no. There's the guy that does the catchy bit of the song. This is a licensing. The guy that does the harmonics or the mixing, this is another licensing thing. And so for one song, you might have 10 to 15 to even more people that are owed royalties out of it.
That's correct. And think about it this way. Let's say you want to use a song. You need to get a license from all of those people. And for example, if you look at a Kanye track, sometimes he has 20 different writers of that song. And each of those writers may be represented by a different publishing group that handles their rights for them, which means that someone...
the clusterfuck.
Oh, it's terrible. And it's all around the globe. So it's not only just in the United States. Like, if you want to license a track around the globe, I might have to reach out to as many as 20 different publishing companies to get a license to allow the tech company that I'm representing to use the music. And sometimes the answer is I can't get a hold of people.
Yeah.
I'd be reaching out to, let's say, a publisher in Africa, and they don't get back to me for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and we've missed the window. And so I say, we got a geofence. We can't use that track in Africa when you guys want to use it. So it can be really frustrating and difficult and sometimes the artists just say no, or the labels say no. We don't want your company to use our music for whatever reason. And then you've got to pick other tracks. So it's a much more complicated process.
Wow. Didn't know about those things. Very, very hard to, very complicated.
Yeah, but
very complicated.
I don't know, maybe.
And expensive.
Since you're in the insides or in the knowings of it, to me, this seems to be kind of a tedious process, but it seems, is there a way is it automated up to a point? Or could you, have a platform and Kanye just puts in his 20 people there, and if you have 20 takes, then you can go with it? Or something like that?
There are definitely platforms out there where if you are trying to license your own music for your own purposes, you can do it. The problem is that it's not always complete. And you won't know that it's not complete until you get a letter from a lawyer in another country saying, "Guess what? You violated copyright law, and we're going to sue you, or you pay us some money." So, I mean, that's the challenge, right? Is that you just don't know. The worst part is, and this is not true in Europe, but it's true in the United States. We have statutory regulations here. So if you violate a copyright, there are statutory rates that they can charge you that are very expensive. We're talking about, dollars a day per track use. And that adds up to millions of dollars sometimes. And it's a statutory rate. So they literally could say you owe us, $2 million for prior use because you didn't get a copyright. And you can't argue that you don't owe it because you violated a statute. So the only argument that you have is, I didn't actually violate the law. And that's obviously expensive and difficult to prove, especially if you did use the music. So then the rate is already set. Now in Europe, you can negotiate over, how much the damages were for the use of the song and get the dollar amount down, but not in the United States.
Okay. So Channing, do you have a special question or a question for Brian before I start shooting off?
Oh no! I mean, the main focus point of the show is to talk about crypto, and I can't wait to jump into the crypto about the main thing. I mean, I do have a lot of questions about the music things, and that's all the things you just said is crazy to me because we were just talking about there's a show going on in China right now, and there's a big company. They have a lot of money, but all the music they pull out, like they are having a competition. And the music they're pulling out are old, the bad taste. And then people are like, why can't they just use the new music because they have a lot of money? But apparently it's not about money. It's about the connection. It's about the things. So probably their PR is not doing a very good job. So they have to use the old music.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, it can be very challenging.
All right, Brian. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of it.
All right, let's do it.
So as you're a lawyer and in a tech company, am I correct? Okay. You do legal representation?
Yes.
Okay. So whatever he says, people, this is not legal advice. All right. Just because he's a lawyer doesn't mean it's legal advice. The same as when we talk crypto doesn't mean it's financial advice.
It's not a financial advice.
Yeah, just to get that out of the way. How does crypto or distributed ledger technologies impact your work? Is it making the lawyering evolve or questioning some stuff, for instance?
Yes, 100%. It is an open issue for a lot of my clients because a lot of them are going to be using crypto not only with their users for their platform, but also they'd like to pay in crypto, and it's simply not possible. For example, I've got tech companies that are in Web3 that will be licensing music, and they want to pay the labels and the publishers in crypto. And the label and the publishers say, absolutely not. We don't know crypto. We don't trust crypto. Ooh. We're not going to accept crypto. So now you've got a problem, right? Now you've got to have a separate platform that you have to sign up for that's going to convert your crypto into fiat, and also the other way, fiat into crypto, to handle your payments. And you're talking about a lot of payments, and on the regular basis, and obviously there's a fluctuation in values, right? On any given day, crypto may be up, crypto may be down, so you have to make sure that you're accounting for the fact that the rate is at the place where you're not paying too much or not paying too little.
Yeah. All right.
Especially for days like today, it's gonna be very fluctuating today.
Yeah,
and it's gonna be
exactly right.
4 more hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and think about it from this way, from a purely legal standpoint. Let's say I make a payment, and let's say that they decide that they're going to accept crypto. I pay them in crypto, but the crypto's value has dropped, so I've actually paid them less than I owe them. I violated my contract. I breached the contract.
Oh.
And I have breached the licensing agreement, and there could be statutory damages if they really wanted to. They could bring a lawsuit. Now there's an argument that maybe that's not material because it wasn't that much of a payment that was less of what I was supposed to pay. But still, the violation is there. The breach is there. The contract. Right. So it's challenging.
So you're saying that if, for instance, we enter a deal together, and on the contract it says that you're going to pay me 1 Bitcoin because my song is a killer song. Okay, right. So it's worth 1 Bitcoin, and we do this when Bitcoin is at 60K.
Right.
Well, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. Yeah.
And so
let's go with 20K.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go with 20K. So we do it. I release my song, and we agree that it's 1 Bitcoin worth. You transfer the Bitcoin to me for 20K, but then, between the moment we sign the contract of you paying me the Bitcoin at 20K and me receiving the Bitcoin, let's say that it dropped 50%. So now Bitcoin is at 10K.
Yes.
So if I understood you correctly, that means that I could sue you for a breach of contract because I was technically owed a Bitcoin worth of 20K. Even though in the contract it was like 1 Bitcoin.
So the way it would probably work in the contract is that you'd say, okay, you're going to pay me, let's pick a number, $10,000 a month. Yeah. And I agree that you can pay me in Bitcoin to cover the $10,000 in fiat a month. Now, if I pay you in Bitcoin and it turns out that the Bitcoin I've given you is less than the 10,000, yes, technically I've underpaid, and and the lawyers are going to send me a letter saying, listen, you've underpaid, you owe us money, and that is a breach of the contract.
Yeah. Oh, right. All right. Okay. But
Bitcoin is always 1 Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's the thing. That was if we were written in the contract 1 Bitcoin without like the fiat value, then we would
never
be okay.
Going to do it that way. Yeah. Generally speaking, I'm not going to see that in a contract.
Oh,
it's
okay.
Usually going to be it's going to be converted. They're going to say, okay, we'll accept crypto, we'll accept Bitcoin, but it has to be worth this amount.
Oh, okay.
In fiat.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
We have to,
and that's assuming that they'll do that. And the labels and the publishers will not do that right now. Yeah. It's just not a reality. So.
Yeah. All right. I have another question. When we did the pre-interview thing, it's just going to be a replication of it. People think because crypto is a new space that regulation is coming, but for now there's not much regulation. Anything goes.
Right.
Can you tell the audience like how wrong they are?
Yeah, you're very wrong. Listen, the reality is that you're transacting business when you're dealing with any kind of currency. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
If there's value that's exchanging hands, the law is going to apply. Now, just because the law on crypto hasn't caught up and there's not new laws that have been written specifically about that, doesn't mean that someone's not going to try to take the old laws and slap them in a very sloppy way onto crypto. And there's going to be lawsuits that are surrounding that. So, you're already seeing situations where there's going to be scams where you're going to say, hey, I've got this NFT, you can buy a portion of the NFT and then you'll get royalties down the line as we sell the NFTs on. Well, there's an argument that you're selling a security.
Yeah.
You're selling essentially similar to a stock. You're buying at one price, hoping that the value goes up in that and you'll be able to sell it down the line for more value.
Yeah.
That's going to open you up to securities laws. And if you are not abiding by the requirements of security laws, there's a good chance that you're going to get sued for violation of security laws, which are very strict.
Yeah.
And you can't argue, well, it's crypto, it's not subject to that. Wrong. That's wrong.
Yeah.
You're going to get sued and there's going to be a battle. Now it's going to be difficult for the court to reconcile the difference between, crypto and securities, and there's going to be arguments. But at the end of the day, they're probably going to stick with the old laws, and you're going to have some liability there.
Yeah. All right. And now, speaking of laws, I don't know if it's applicable to the internet, but it's definitely applicable to crypto. There is no international law. There's not a body of laws that is enforced globally and that is uniform. And so each country applies its body of law.
Correct.
Now, in crypto, how do you know, for instance, if I am on a website, for instance, if I'm on a website, then I think for the internet, it's where the website is registered or the company is registered that the laws applies. So if I browse a US website,
not necessarily.
No? All right. But then,
and I'm only going to speak from US law standpoint because I'm not licensed in any other country. But I will tell you that if you do business in the United States, if your website allows any kind of transaction in the United States and with a US citizen in the United States, you're going to be subject to US law.
All right.
And they will come and look for you.
All right. Even if I'm in Switzerland.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You'd have to geofence your website outside of the United States so it cannot be accessed in the United States.
Okay.
If you do business in the United States.
That's like Binance US.
Yeah, you're going to be subject to U.S. laws, and they will come after you.
All right.
We like to say that the arm of the U.S. law is very long.
Yeah,
we reach a long way. Yeah, and a lot of financiers and other people have found that out the hard way. That you can't violate U.S. law outside of the U.S. and think that you're going to be immune to that. They're gonna find you and they're gonna come after you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for clarification.
Like Liam.
I know who you are. I'll find you. That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because I thought, it's a concept. People always, especially for people come from Asian countries like me, I come from China. And we always thought the US is very open, very, liberty is one of the key factors of the whole nation's image. But then coming into the crypto space, I feel like there's a lot of things that's restricted in the US, but not in Europe, not in Canada, not in a lot of other places. That's why they have Binance.us instead of Binance, and then they have the Coinbase, whereas nobody else uses Coinbase outside of the US because it's not really good to use at all. So just in generally, does that add to the points that you just said, like US laws are very strict, very complicated, comprehensive?
Yeah, I think, obviously one of the reasons why is that the US is one of the largest, most established and safest markets in the world. And one of the reasons for that is because of the strict nature of its securities laws. And so
that is true.
It's just, that's the reality of the situation, is that we're always trying to find ways to regulate new ways of engaging in commerce. And we're going to take our existing laws and try to find a way to fit the new commerce into those laws. So in other words, you can't skirt both security laws and also, frankly, tax law, which is a huge challenge to avoid in the United States. It's going to be very difficult for anyone to avoid U.S. tax laws. They chase you. They do around the globe.
All right.
And so that's constantly what people are looking at is the U.S. laws when you're doing business here. And you have to be very aware of that. If you're going to do business, I don't care where you're located. If you're doing business in the United States through your website, whether it's Web3 or Web2, you're subject to U.S. law.
All right. Yeah. It actually rings a bell because there was a dispute of some sort between Switzerland and the US a couple 5 years ago probably, and now for everything that is bank related, for instance, in Switzerland, they always ask their questions. Are you a US citizen? Do you
Right.
Oh yes.
do you do business or transactions in the US?
Yep, that's correct.
We do that
Yeah,
the same
100%.
in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in Australia it's the same. Yeah. And
Yeah.
always this question if you do any business related into the States. But then I think what you just said makes perfect sense, and that's added to the point that a lot of people in the crypto, they feel like unregulated space are they feel better. But actually, I do agree that the more regulated the space is, the safer we are.
Correct.
The more there's more trust into the space they are, and also when we talk about we talk about the FOMC meeting a lot of times, and when that happens, people are going to look into the SP 500, not the other stocks in the other countries, because just because it's how safe they are, how strong they are, how the law enforcements are inside. That's why just as you said, because they have these strict inside of the US law, that's why we're looking at the SP 500, not the other countries. So
that's 100% accurate. Yeah. Now, it's obviously not a perfect system. We have scandals probably every decade where there's huge, terrible things that happen in the stock market.
A name and add the gates to it, and you get a scandal.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And then, some people go to jail, some don't. And then we pass some new regulations, and then we keep doing the same thing that we keep doing. But generally speaking, yes, it's a lot safer because you really have the specter of the SEC and frankly the IRS over your shoulder every time you're making a movement. The laws are very strict here about how you can accept investment and how you pay out those investments when you're dealing with investors.
Does it simplify your work as a lawyer? Because what I'm saying is the aim of a lawyer, or from my understanding of it, or my understanding of your profession, is a contract is basically to define clear rules between two parties.
Right.
And so if you have a strict body of law, and as a lawyer, your job is to know the law. So isn't it easier for you to draft contracts, or is your job easier because you have a strict body of law? Or does it make it harder because you have to think of all the minute details and stuff?
It's easier in the sense that the framework is there.
Yeah.
The challenge is that I don't always get the project or the company before they get out of the gate. So in other words, someone may come to me, and this happened recently in the Web3 space, where some folks got together and they came up with some ideas and they launched those ideas, and those ideas turned into something successful, which garnered investors wanting to put money into this venture, I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
And then that turned into a battle between the people that formed this group that came up with this venture. So then they come to me and they say, how do we fix this? And the reality is that it's so far down the line now that it's hard to put it back together. I can't just simply put a contract together because these parties aren't talking anymore. And then the question becomes, who owns what? And, what are the rights of the individuals within this group, and whose idea was it, and who has rights to, and it becomes very messy and ugly, and it can actually kill the business that they came up with. So the reality is, yes, it's simple if I get involved immediately. If, a couple people come together and they say, form a company for us, put the contracts together for us, and then we're going to move the company forward. Yeah, then it's easy because there's a framework that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
But if someone comes to me after the fact,
damage
it's hard
control.
to put the genie back in the bottle sometimes that way. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you. We have a question from the audience, so I'm going to read it. Brian, at the beginning, you touched on licensing of music and permission from 20 plus producers / people.
Yes.
How do companies or apps like TikTok, Instagram are able to use music in reels and videos? people obviously making money from these videos, but would TikTok and Instagram have to pay royalty or something like that?
So there's two ways that this happens. TikTok licenses music, and they pay a lot of money to do it. Generally speaking, what happens is the users of TikTok go into the TikTok library, and they are able to pick tracks that are licensed tracks and use those tracks in their videos out of the library.
Yeah, because the TikTok library is the legal version.
Is paid.
Yeah. Correct.
Right.
Now, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes there's people that will use their own music in their own videos, and that's called UGC, user-generated content. Now, there are laws around UGC, which are safe harbor laws, which allow TikTok to say, hey, listen, we didn't sanction this person to use that music. We understand it's unlicensed music. We have told that person that they need to take that video down. That is a violation of copyright law. And as long as they meet those, and that's a very broad definition of what is required to happen, but that's generally what happens. And as long as TikTok does that, they've technically met the law and they fall under the safe harbor, and they can avoid being sued for copyright violation.
Okay. Thank you for answering. Channing, your turn. Do you have questions, or should I continue firing? Because my brain is firing at 1,000 speed. I want to give the other people a chance to.
Sure. I mean, there's for after these conversations, I definitely need to change a lot of information for the NFT pack that I'm writing down, because I always thought that the Web3, the NFT, is going to change the music industry, and the way I see it, the way I thought it would be was, when we have these NFT for music, not only the artist who creates all this music. Apparently now I know that it's not only one people that creates all these things, because you just said 20 people having the license. But correct. I thought the artist who creates all these NFTs, and they can put a royalty on these NFTs, and then whoever buys, or whenever this transaction, the creator gets more royalty or money from that, and then that way they can get a lot of money, generates a lot of things, and then people can get into the fan club and all these things. Correct. But apparently it is a lot harder, more complicated than just a piece of music and generating passive income, because it is security, basically, if that's the way it happens.
That's absolutely correct. Now that hasn't been formally decided yet, but the SEC is actively investigating and looking at that space for the exact reason that you just said. And if you think about it from this standpoint, the SEC is trying to protect the general public. Okay. Right. So if I'm able to put together a package and I'm selling an NFT, and I broadly advertise it on radio and television, hey, buy my NFT. You can buy a portion of my NFT, and it's going to make you $500,000 within a month. Okay. And you're Joe Sixpack on the street that has a normal job, and you take your rent money and you invest it into my NFT, thinking you're going to get $500,000 in a month, and you lose all your money. That's what the SEC is trying to protect against, because that will happen. Guaranteed, it's happening right now. And that happens with stock. Those are stock scams, and it's the same thing with NFTs. So that's what the SEC is worried about. They want to put parameters around the way that you can present investment opportunities to individuals out there that might be interested in investing in that. Now, they haven't formally ruled that NFTs and Web3 are subject to securities laws, but I'm going to tell you right now that if you tried to do what I just described, you're going to get sued, and they're going to apply the security laws to that transaction. So, yes, so you do have to be careful about how you develop an NFT strategy like that. Now, that is being done. It's being done right now. There are people out there that are selling the artists themselves. If you're an artist and you write the track yourself, you record the track yourself, you do all the work yourself, you can have your own copyright and control all the rights to that track. Brand new, no one else has been involved in that. And then, yes, you can create an NFT out of it, and then you can sell portions of that NFT out on the marketplace. That is possible.
Okay.
It is being done today, and it is very exciting. It's very cool, and I'm excited for the artists that are doing it because it does give them a lot more control over their tracks.
Yeah.
There's a couple of challenges there. From the music standpoint, it can be difficult because the reason why you get labels involved is because of the marketing that they could throw behind your track.
Yeah.
They can get out there and they can advertise and they can get you onto different platforms, and they can really try to help you as an artist grow and get your music out there and get it sold. So it's not, a lot of times these artists think, oh, I don't need the label, and I'm just gonna create my own track and I'm gonna go out and sell it. Well, that's like having a product that you're trying to sell online as opposed to having your product in a Walmart or a big grocery store.
Being a
where
writer,
there's a lot
not
of
having
people
an
looking
editor.
at it. Yeah, it's not as simple as you think. Now, if you have 100 million people following you on TikTok, you're not going to have any problem selling your NFTs. But if you're just an obscure, solo artist from pick a country trying to sell NFTs and make a living off of that, it's going to be very difficult. So it's not as simple as just putting a track out there as an NFT and thinking that that's a game changer. It is, and it's not. It is if you're Snoop Dogg. It's not if you're someone that's just getting started. It's a totally different animal. So if you already have the marketing, behind you because you're a famous face, you can sell a lot of NFTs. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is what I described. You're subject to possibly U.S. securities laws. So if you're just out there selling portions of your NFT and promising that there's going to be future revenue and thinking that you're not subject to the law, you're wrong. That's simply not the case. And the worst part about it is that if someone sues you for that, they're suing you personally. Now, the difference between that and
physical and moral entity?
What's that?
Are you referring to they're suing you personally? Are you saying like the difference in the laws between physical entity and moral entities?
No, I'm talking.
I think it's limited and not unlimited.
That's right.
All right.
So in the United States, the way it's set up is like if I form a company and I enter into contracts under the name of that company, as long as I have the proper language in my contracts, if there's a lawsuit, whoever's suing me can only get the assets within the company.
Yeah.
Okay. They can't get my personal assets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Same in
And that's
Switzerland.
by design. Yeah, exactly. That's by design. But the problem that I've found in Web3 with a lot of these folks is that they don't set up a company. They don't have a separate entity. They do all of these things personally. And when there's a lawsuit, guess what? They're going to come after you personally. So they're going to try to take your house if you own a house, your car if you own that car, any money in your bank account. They will take you all the way down. And so that's very, very scary. And in the corporate world of law, I do everything I can to limit my client's exposure to personal liability for any kind of lawsuit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately in the Web3 space, because it's so brand new and everyone's excited about it, and they don't think that the law applies, they run off and do a lot of these, businesses individually without having a corporate, structure wrapped around that. And they don't realize that they have personal liability for anything that they do, not only with third parties, but with each other. If there's a fight between the founders of a company and you don't have the company surrounding it, you're all personally liable to each other for that.
Well, that's why we put an LTD at the end of the company.
Yeah. Your days must be filled with work.
Yeah,
actually, just talking to you, I think when we are, the DJs, when we talk about, fuck the regulations, the governments, the SEC, the regulations, this and that, you must think how childish and naive they are when they think about all these ideas. They thought this is something new that never happened before, and we're gonna be all be billionaires. Whereas actually, these kind of thoughts already happened many years ago, in many circumstances, and they all got defeated. So
Jenny, what you just described is exactly 1,000% accurate. It's exactly what I think. Because the problem is, and I just had this situation recently where a group came to me and they were saying, well, I can't, we got together and we had a great idea, and now there's some people that want to invest in it and everyone's excited. And the people that I was in the business with, suddenly they said that I wasn't part of it anymore, and that they had the idea and they're the ones that are gonna, and it's like, that's every single day in corporate America. That happens every single day with businesses and partners and partnerships. And that's why the laws have been built in the United States over hundreds of years, because of situations just like this. And Web3 is no different. You're going to have the same issues that you have in any other business setting. And just because it's brand new and exciting, and I love it, and I'm excited about it too, but the reality is you're going to have the same exact business issues that I see every single day in the normal business setting. And to think that you're not going to have that is just, it's human nature. Greed is going to take over. You're going to have battles. You're going to have fights, and people are going to be left scratching their heads like, how did this happen? Well, this happens every day.
Yeah. All right.
Just think about even Steve Jobs get kicked out by Apple, the company that he started.
That's absolutely 100% a brilliant observation. This happens every single day, and in the largest companies in the world, every single day. Yeah. It's a constant jockeying of who's in the power position. And, unfortunately, that's just the reality of it. And that leads into the issue that part of my job is to educate people in the Web3 space and the crypto space that you need to be protected right from the beginning. You need to understand that there are laws. You should abide by those laws and protect yourself, because you're exposing yourself to a lot of liability otherwise.
Yeah, especially if it's the personal one. Like, once you tell people, like, they could come after your dog or your car, then that makes them think. But if you say, like, if you use the lawyer's terms, the legal terms, like, you're exposing yourself to personal liability, it doesn't ring that much of a bell.
Right.
Then, like, they're coming to you for your car and your parking space and your offices and whatever.
Well, and think about this. The other challenge too is that if people it's very emotional when you get sued.
Yeah.
The first reaction is always, oh, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything wrong. And that may be true, but that's irrelevant, because the reality is that in the United States, anybody can sue anybody for anything at any time.
Okay.
And guess what? You can't ignore it. You have to address it, which means you have to hire a lawyer, which is insanely expensive. And you have to answer the complaint, which is going to cost thousands of dollars. And you can't just say, I didn't do anything wrong, and everyone's going to go, oh, this person's right, and we're going to go away. It doesn't work like that. You're going to be in it for thousands of dollars, and it's going to go until it stops.
Yeah.
The litigation, it could be years, that you're involved in this. So the reality is that you can't just simply put your head in the sand and pretend that this isn't going to happen to you. There's a very real chance that it could happen, and you need to protect yourself early on.
Yeah. Yeah. So you are sparking a lot of discussion in the chat.
Yes.
I kind of let them, but we have kind of questions that are piled now. We have to address them.
Well, there's a lot of chats going on. Yes.
I'm going to read one. Hello, Brian. One of the main challenges of blockchain and thus NFTs is privacy, given that information on the blockchain is public. And the very few chains that privatize it have come under extreme scrutiny, like the recent Tornado Cash debacle, for instance. Would a privacy-compliant chain be feasible in the near future? In particular, considering that data could be tokenized and user would be issued an NFT for it.
Yes. So what's that makes
that was quick.
Yeah, and that makes total sense to me. Now, what's the question surrounding that?
So the question is, would a privacy compliant chain be feasible? In particular, because there's going to be tokenized assets,
absolutely,
in the forms of NFTs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. So, like, I think a perfect example of that is medical privacy.
Medical privacy. Okay, I thought it was a chain.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Your medical records.
Yeah.
Okay, those can be very sensitive. There may be things that you don't necessarily want people to know about your health history for many, many reasons. Maybe if an employer found out that you had some disease which could lead to you not being able to work at some point, they may not want to hire you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of privacy concerns that surround your medical records. And in the United States, we have what's called HIPAA, which is a law that protects your privacy with your medical records. But unfortunately, that can be leaky. Your medical records can get out there into the public stream. The website for a hospital can get hacked, and your medical records can get hacked. So having your medical records in an NFT that you control on the blockchain can create privacy and allow you to only allow access to your medical records when you give a key to your NFT and give permission, a limited permission for someone to access that. So yes, I think that's going to be a huge issue. It is a huge issue. And I'm excited about the level of privacy that we're going to have moving forward as we start locking it up under the blockchain.
Yeah, that was actually the topic of my PhD proposal in the beginning of it. It was like, how do you leverage DLTs to store sensitive data, like under one umbrella? But for instance, like, and I had the example of the tax record, the medical record, and other stuff. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of the PhD was to have like a master ID, which would be owned to you, mm-hmm. because like it's your data, and then you would be able to say like that data is medical, for instance. So I give the decryption key to my physician because it makes sense that he has it, But as he's the only one that has that key to unlock my data, then it would be safeguarded from like the employers or whatever.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's the idea behind it. Yeah.
And so another question is, could you see NFTs becoming the gated access for artists to their music? It ponders the question whether popular streaming/music companies could integrate gated access for their music to a section of their platform. I.e., Spotify could see that an NFT for a particular artist unlocks an exclusive section of Spotify for that artist, for instance.
That's 100% accurate, and that's happening today already.
Oh.
Yeah, no,
really?
Maybe not with Spotify.
Yeah,
but definitely you're having artists that are having exclusive NFTs, where you're purchasing the NFT and you not only get access to that song or catalog of songs, but in addition to that, you get maybe access to a discount on merchandise, discount on tickets to their events, maybe a VIP pass. Maybe a access code to a Zoom call where you get to talk to the artist and have them drop a new track. All of this is a reality, and all of it is happening right now. I have clients that are doing that right now that I work with, and are integrating all kinds of really cool concepts into the ability to use NFTs to allow their super fans and fans in general to have exclusive access to their content and other things.
Yeah. Now I'm curious. Do you mind shilling it a bit?
What do you mean?
Do you maybe specific names or projects or platforms so I can look at it, or if it's
maybe offline. I can do that.
Okay.
I don't know.
No problem.
No
problem there. I have a follow-up question, which is, are all blockchain created equal when it's in regards of the law? Because we have
question.
So because we have different blockchain architectures and stuff, are some maybe more how to say it, easy to work with, let's say. So is it maybe easier to make the law abides in the Bitcoin network versus the Ethereum, or that doesn't even change something?
You know, the challenge for me is this. The general answer is no. I think that the law is going to look at
the same
any kind of exchange of Bitcoin. They're going to look at it the same way.
Yeah.
You've got a commodity and you're selling it. You know, it's going to fall under. They're going to apply the securities laws to that. That being said, one of the challenges that I'm seeing now is that everyone gets excited about issuing their own token.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that with artists now. They say, oh, I'm going to have my own token and you can buy my token, or I'm going to pay you in my token. And then the question becomes, well, what's that token really worth? Mm-hmm. You know, I understand it's your token, but am I able to buy or sell it on the Ethereum platform? No. Where the hell can I sell this thing? Where's the value? Where's the underlying value? That's like me saying, okay, Brian is going to issue Brian's stock.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pay you in my stock. And I say to my landlord, I'm going to pay you with my stock. And the landlord is going to say, that's great, but where can I sell this stock to get money that I can then pay other people with? It's the same concept. And so what's happening is there's a lot of platforms that are allowing people to create their own tokens and then issue those tokens to each other. But then the question becomes, what's the value of that token and where can I trade it? And what if, you know, I'm holding a bunch of these tokens and it never turns into something that I can buy or sell? Are they worthless? What can I do with them? You know, where's the value?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that a lot more in the space. And the securities laws are going to be applied to that also.
Yeah. All right. Channing? Otherwise, I keep firing.
So, yeah. So whatever we thought is a new technology, we thought about, you know, there's a new chain, new NFT, this and that. And then to Brian's, it's just another kind of a commodity. It's another kind of a gold, silver, or copper. It's just they're all the same. And you're subject to the tax law, you're subject to the security law, subject to all of these things. So
correct. And let me preface that by saying that's not to say that I'm not super excited about it. I work in the space. I love the technology. I'm super excited about the possibilities of the technology, especially because it does give artists the ability to control their creative works and to monetize those creative works in many different ways. And especially for smaller artists, it does allow them to monetize. And I think that's really cool. In fact, you're seeing situations where separate groups will invest in an artist and allow them to create NFTs and go out and sell those NFTs and then use that money to build their presence in the space. I think that's really cool, and I'm excited about it, and I'm supportive of it, and I do everything I can to help these groups along the way. But I do let them know that if they think that they're not going to be subject to these laws, that's simply just not correct, not accurate.
Yeah. All right. So I'll come back to what excites you the most. I just have a question. Do you have not tips and tricks, but more like, do you have when you're browsing the crypto space, do you have red flags from the legal point of view, where, as you said, like you often have clients that have not constructed like a company or something to protect them from personal liability. Do you have like common red flags that you see and you're like, oh, these boys are going to be in trouble, or something like that?
I wouldn't say red flags, but I would say that my advice to any group that's getting together and trying to launch a product or a business or anything I mean, obviously, I would tell you to try to set up a company and use that company as the vehicle to do so, and follow all the normal, regular things that a normal startup company would do. If you're not going to do that, I would recommend highly that you, via Telegram, via email, via text, whatever vehicle that you're using, you make it very clear very early on who's doing what in the project, who's involved in the project, and maybe even the expectations of how the ownership is going to be related to that project. So it's very clear upfront the parties that are involved, who is going to be owning what, and who's going to be controlling or being part of the process in that business. And then I would recommend get it in writing, and then back up your messages so you've got a running record in your own records that lay out how it started, who's involved, who said what, who owns what, and then it takes some of the guesswork out of it. And I had this experience very recently where I had a group that put together a project loosely on Telegram, and then they went and they pitched it at a hackathon. It was widely celebrated by a group of venture capital firms, and they had 7 or 8 venture capital firms that wanted to invest in this project and put money towards it to move it forward. What happened when that happened was that a few of the folks from that group then let a couple of other folks in that group know that they didn't think they were involved in the project. You weren't involved. You didn't participate. You didn't add any value. You're not part of this project moving forward. And the other folks said, what the hell are you talking about? I've got records. I've got, communications on Telegram that show that we talked about this. Well, guess what? Whoever set that Telegram chat room up deleted everything on there. All of the messaging, as if somehow that erases history and that you no longer have any rights to that claim. So now what happens is that they call me, and now we get the lawyers involved, and all of the regular laws apply to the situation now. So now we got to go back into the records. We have to subpoena Telegram to get a copy of what's in their records, that there was a communication.
You can actually do that.
Here's what it said. Here's the battle. And now we're in, now you end up in with litigators in a lawsuit in court fighting over who owns what to this future project. Now it gets even worse than that. And by the way, the personal liability applies. So now my folks are suing the other folks personally, not a company. They're saying, I'm suing you.
You're coming for the dogs.
I'm coming for the dogs. And, it's just, you go down that slope of the ugliness that happens there. And the worst part about that is that the venture capital firms that are interested in your project,
not anymore.
Now you have to let them know that there is a lawsuit or about a potential lawsuit between the founders of this company. And guess what the venture capital firms are going to do? They're going to pull out, and they're going to say, let us know when that all gets worked out. And then we'll come back in and be involved in your project. But until that happens, we want no part of this, and we're not going to invest $1 into your company. So it's a huge problem. And it goes back to what we talked about before, which is that if you think that this space is not going to get touched by normal laws, it isn't going to follow the normal trajectory of other businesses, you're wrong. You have to get this settled up front and personally. And that's really the red flag, is that you have to understand that these types of things do happen, especially as the money and the greed kicks in. And Web3 is not going to be immune to that.
Wow, that was a lot of information.
That's it's a practical example of how quick things can go south.
Literally, and the people, they're blown away by it. They go, oh my God, I can't believe that those I thought we were working together. And unfortunately, this is every single day in business.
That's why contracts are important to protect you.
That's right. That's exactly
when it comes
right.
to money, it's always, prepared to get ugly. This reminds me of a joke that we have in China that old couple, they bought a lottery ticket, and at night they had a dream. They won the jackpot, a couple of $1 million, and then they were talking about how to split the $1 million, and they were having a fight, and then they went divorced. But the reality is they never won the jackpot, so they thought they were going to have these all these kind of thing, and then having a fight, and then in the end it's just nothing. So that's
right.
And you are telling us that on Telegram, because everybody uses Telegram as a Web3 thing, because you can erase the record of it. I can literally delete the chat record, not only from my end, but from your end as well.
That's right.
But then even that can be traced back by Telegram if you are enforcing the law into it.
Yeah, I can go to, and Telegram's going to have records. They may not have the actual text of what was said, but they're going to have a record of the fact that these were the people that were involved in that group, and that there were communications that were involved. I mean, we drilled down in the United States. I can get your text records. I can see, I may not be able to see the actual text themselves, but I can see that there was activity and that there was communications between you. So saying that, so that takes me back to if there's a founder of a company and they say Channing wasn't involved, Channing says, well, that's interesting because Telegram says that I was involved in this group and that we, over the last 2 months, were communicating back and forth. Okay. I can't show you the exact text of what was said, but clearly I was involved. And clearly I'm saying that I should own a piece of this company. So trying to pretend that somehow you're going to be able to erase records and erase history that way, it's just, it's juvenile and childish to think that you're going to be able to get away with that, that kind of and there's always records somewhere. You're always going to get caught with that.
Especially if it's digital. Like people think that because it's digital, it's not physical, but physical is way harder to trace than digital. And so, it kind of circles back in the end to, if you are in a crypto company or even in a regular company for that matter, and you're all over the world, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have employees all over the world, but you have your HQ somewhere, let's say in the US. If there's a litigation between employees, for instance, or that founder example, where does the law battle takes place? At the HQ, or in the country where the HQ is located, or because I'm in Switzerland and Channing is in Australia, it's in either of our country because it's between us.
There's going to be a battle over the battle. There's going to be I want to fight on my turf. That's it, 100%.
All right.
In fact, in the contracts that I do, I specify where we're going to fight.
Yeah,
I literally have a provision.
When we have our contracts at TechTree, it's the same. Yeah.
But I insist, and I've battled over that before, where there's different. They say, well, no, we want to be subject to UK law, and I go, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You're doing business in the United States, and we're gonna. If there's a battle, it's going to be in the United States under US law, and more specifically in a specific state that I like.
Yeah.
So there's a battle over the battle, and that could take months and thousands of dollars with lawyers just fighting over where you're going to fight before you even get started. So you're right. It's a slippery slope that you go down of battles that are going to happen before you even realize that you're in the battle.
Yeah. So for instance, I believe like Do Kwon and Terra Luna. It's kind of where we are at the moment, I think. Like South Korea wants to trial him, if it's the correct word, in South Korea. And apparently, like, it's not going to happen in South Korea. I don't know. But it seems to be like the first installment that is the battle of the battle. Like, where are we going to fight it?
Well, and the thing, too, is it doesn't just end. Let's say that you have a battle in South Korea, and there's a result in South Korea. The United States government doesn't care. They're like,
Oh.
that's cute.
Right.
That's cute. But guess what? We're still suing you in the United States. You're still subject to a separate lawsuit here. And we don't care what the South Korean government did or the South Korean courts did. Doesn't matter to us. We got our
Oh
own laws.
my!
So rule number 1 is don't do bad things in the Web3 world.
No, even in the regular world, because what everything that Brian says is totally not crypto specific.
No.
No,
It's just
no,
that we
definitely
have
not.
misconception or miseducation about laws.
And that,
Particularly in the United
it-
States. I mean, here it's so different from the rest of the world in the sense that people will sue at the drop of a hat.
Ooh.
It happens every day. And because of that, people are very cautious about how they enter into relationships and how they, what they do before they enter into relationships with contracts and companies, and they try to really protect themselves as much as possible. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And it gives, as Channing, as you said, there's a reason why people feel safe investing in the United States and the S&P 500, and it's because of the thing that I just described. People are very cautious and careful about how they conduct their business here because they know that it can be very dangerous and cost you a lot of money if you don't do it the correct way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, now that makes me rethink about all the NDAs I signed casually. I was like, okay, you're in France, you're never gonna catch me, and I'm just signing my name. It makes me rethink of all the actions I do.
You're 100% accurate in being worried about those things, because the reality is they could at any moment say you violated our NDA and we're suing you. You may not have done that. But guess what? You've got to spend a lot of money and hire a lawyer to prove that you didn't do it. And that could take quite a while to go through that process. Mm-hmm. So anytime you sign anything personally like that, there's potential there.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, guys, I got to take a potty break. I'll be right back.
No worries.
Okay.
No worries.
Wow, that was amazing. That was really a lot of information to unpack, and it just out of my expectation, to be honest. I thought Web3 and law are there are a lot of connections, but then somewhat detached. Mm-hmm. But turning out that they are all correlated, and it's not a new thing. It is a new technology, but it is still subject to a lot of laws and a lot of regulations.
Yeah, and that's the thing is
not necessarily
that's why it's so important to protect yourself, because you might not know that a law was passed in 1804 that regards a specific topic, but guess what? They can actually use that, and you're fucked. Like when I was researching do you know the Occupy Wall Street movement?
Not really.
So it was around 2008, like during the financial crisis. People gathered in Wall Street, and it was called Occupy Wall Street. Basically, like they were camping in the street.
Okay.
And
so you can't use it anymore. Like there's no cars or anything.
Yeah. And they held protests basically, and they were really smart. Like law-wise, they were really smart. But
come back, gentlemen.
Hey. I was just talking to Channing about when I was researching, for instance, Occupy Wall Street, the movement Occupy Wall Street. Like I was telling him, like, they were really smart and everything, but like the people that were attacking that group, that movement, they used a law, I think, that dates back to the 1900s, where it was you cannot wear a mask on a public setting or something like that, which is an old law, like 1900s for masquerade balls or whatever. And this is what they used to get them into court. And what I was saying to Channing is, like, you have to really protect yourself, because you might not know of all the precedence laws that are still in effect, and that could be used to grab you and then bring back to court. And as you said, like, you can't ignore like a court appearance.
Yeah, that happens all the time. So a lot of times you'll see there's the civil side of it and the criminal side of it. Let's focus on criminal. Let's focus on criminal for a sec. In the United States, when there's a crime that's been committed or not committed, and you're prosecuted for that, normally the prosecution will charge you with like 10 different things, murder, violation of human rights, all types of different things, aggravated assault, battery. They've
casting a wide net.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens is at the end of the day, 9 of those 10 things might be thrown out, but the one thing will stick, or maybe 2 things stick. And in those 2 things that stick have, sentencing that's 10 to 15 years. So that's the way they do it. They cast the wide net. It's the same with civil lawsuits. If I'm going to sue somebody, it's not going to be on one thing. It's going to be on 5 things. Yeah. And I'm going to try to see if I can get all 5 to stick. All 5 probably won't stick, but 1 or 2 will, and that's enough. So that's kind of how it's done. And so you're right. It's not as simple as saying, "Oh, I didn't do X, Y, or Z." It doesn't matter. There's going to be other things that I'm going to try to get you on, and ultimately, you might be right. You may win, but guess what? That's going to be 2 years down the road, $100,000 later, and you turned out to be correct. But by then, you've gone through hell.
Yeah, the emotional toll,
spent a ton of money, and your business is over, and the time and effort that you've spent focusing on fighting in court is time and effort that you're not spent on your Web3 business. Yeah. It takes your focus off of what your core business is and what you're trying to accomplish. So it really is something you got to think about from that perspective.
Yeah. Oh man, honestly, like I can go on for hours, but I'm going to steal your time and everything. Yeah. Maybe let's just ask the audience. Do you guys have any questions for Brian before we let him off the hook? And Brian, thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you.
Absolutely, so my
pleasure. Honestly, it was a blast. We as I said, we could do it for probably another 10 hours, but at some point you're going to charge us, and when the bill comes, I'm going to be like, oh my.
What do you mean? I already sent the bill, guys. Did you get it yet?
I haven't opened up my email.
It's in Telegram.
And for the people who's listening to this or watching this, you can see Brian's email just down there, and then you can find ways to find him via email. So in case you
unless he finds you. Unless he finds you.
I'll find you.
Yeah. All right. So I think it's a wrap. Thank you very much for following us. And